Hello, everybody.
Good evening, y'all. Y'all caught me a little tardy for a little bit of the party.
Little
Good
tardy for the
evening.
party, but we want to say hey, and we want to welcome everybody to this episode of the His Voice, Her Vibe podcast. I am one of your hosts, your co-host, Norris Henderson,
I am Lisa Henderson.
and we are excited to see you all on tonight on this very, very cold, for some places, very, very snowy and icy night. It's cold here in the Houston area that we're anticipating a lot of ice. I know in Wichita back home, there's a lot of snow and everything else, and so it's very, very cold. But we're here, we're inside, we're warm. Thank God for warm houses and food to eat and clothes to put on and everything else that He's afforded us to be able to have as amenities to be able to survive. So we're glad to see you all on. How
We
is
are.
everybody doing? Let me know.
Yep. Drop it in the comments how you're surviving this weather. Some people, they find it very hard to stay in and not go anywhere and, have to get along with who they live with or be still and, just watch TV. So how y'all managing? How y'all managing the cold today?
Got a few people on, so we want to definitely shout at you out. I'm not able to see who you are at the moment, but thank you for joining us.
Yes, yes. We
Thank you for
we
joining us.
appreciate you. We appreciate your support. So without further ado, before we get started, I always have to give our little disclaimer and remind you that this podcast is all about real talk and personal growth. But remember, we're not giving medical, legal, or psychological advice here. Everything shared is for insight and reflection only. Really great conversation. And if you're going through something tough, please reach out to a qualified professional who can give you the support you deserve. So, Mr. Henderson, what's our topic?
So today our topic, and y'all excuse me because I didn't see that one coming, but I want to give you the exact topic today. So we're going to continue in our the conversations that we never had series. I know last week or the last podcast that we had, it was very, very good, very, very insightful. We got a lot of comments on it. I got a lot of feedback from that particular episode that we had. But this time we're going to be talking about conflict repair and resolution. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Subtitle is Fighting Fair: How to Disagree Without Destroying the Relationship. And so we're going to answer a couple of questions, such as: Is there a such thing as healthy conflict? And how do we apologize and you make that apology land where that person is actually able to accept it? Um is emotional damage repairable before resentment starts? So we have all kinds of different things that we'll be talking about on tonight. And so let's just talk about, I guess we can define what conflict is. We can start from there. We can define what conflict is, and then the stat queen, she has a lot of stuff that she's going to be telling you guys about, and we'll just go ahead and we'll keep the conversation rolling. I see that Anthony Coleman was on. How you doing, fam? Good to see you.
Hey, Elgin. Hey, son.
And we see Bud, our son, he's on. So we definitely want to shout you guys out and everybody else that's on. It's 9 people on. Y'all let us know who you are. Come on in and talk to us. We ready to talk. So
So, conflict, in my opinion, this is not Webster. Conflict, in my opinion, is being in disagreement,
all right.
being in disagreement regarding a certain topic, certain situation, a certain thing, and working towards a common goal to either agree or disagree.
That's good. I would almost venture to say the same. Conflict definitely being disagreement or disharmony. I would use that word.
A lack of being in
Yeah,
harmony.
yeah.
Okay.
Disharmony between you and another person or a group of people, um, to a point to where it causes ill feelings. It causes possible, emotional duress and
So
distress.
it's a step further than
Yeah,
disagreement.
yeah. To me, it's a
Okay.
step further
I
than
can see that.
disagreement.
I can see
It's a
that.
step further than
I can see that.
disagreement, because I can agree to disagree, but when we're having a conflict, I believe that at that particular moment,
There's feelings and emotions
you
and
got feelings, you got emotions, and I'm
okay.
standing my ground, you're holding your ground. And so that's just my definition of
Okay.
it.
Okay. So conflict in a relationship, how do we what we want to get to this evening is how do we have conflict in a relationship without destroying the relationship? So it's totally normal to have conflict in relationships. The key is learning the skill and the predictors for long-term
Right.
relationship.
That's
So in
good.
other words, if you don't learn the skill of working through and managing conflict appropriately, then you are less likely to have a healthy long-term relationship. Around 69% of relationship conflicts are perpetual, stemming from core personality or lifestyle differences rather than solvable problems.
Say
I'm going to
that again.
read that
Yeah,
again.
say that again.
69% of relationship conflicts are or stem from core personality or lifestyle differences
Wow.
rather than solvable problems.
So in other words, a big percentage, like the percentage that you mentioned, is basically because innately I'm just not going to agree. I'm just going to
Or
be who I
the
am.
real reason why you are not gonna agree or choosing to be who you are could stem from other factors such as how you were
Okay.
raised, other traumatic situations. You know, we talk about that a lot on here. It could stem from other things. So, how you manage conflict directly is a direct effect on your lifestyle, the people around you, the
Right.
way you were raised, how you were taught, and how it was exhibited in front of you.
You
So
know,
keep those things in mind as we dive a little bit deeper.
one thing that I can say, um, and it's different in this day and time, when we talk about conflict, especially in relationships, I'm just thinking back in my mind. And those that know me know that I was raised by my grandparents. And I honestly cannot think of a time where I actually ever saw them in any type of a conflict. I've never seen them argue with each other. I've never seen them yell at each other. I've never heard them disagree, even behind closed doors. But I think what that says to me is that, especially in relationships, you have to be careful who it is that you allow these things to be done in front of. And I know I'm kind of going, off the beaten path, but I'm coming back on. You
Okay.
know, a lot of the time, in some instances, let me say that, in some instances, disagreements in front of certain folk, all that does is it heightens the disagreement and it makes it
So when you have
worse.
an audience,
For
there
some people,
seems to be
that audience is a let me show out moment.
oh, okay.
And I'm gonna show
Well, you
out,
know, my mama said where you get woe out where you show out.
and that's okay. I get that
So
too. But I'm just saying that sometime when there's an audience, some people, just like you were saying, the way that they were raised and different things on the inside of them that makes them push more. They want to act out more.
and I think that that has a lot to do with respect
Absolutely.
because I respect you enough not to have an outward conflict with you while in public.
Right. And vice
I,
versa.
I choose not to do that because I respect you. So I think that scenario plays out when there's a lack of respect.
Right. And just, I mean, we're talking about relationships, and there's so many dynamics,
Yeah.
that conflict can take. There's so many avenues that conflict can take. Like I said, in some instances in a public forum, people want to show out and do the most in the midst of a conflict because I'm not going to be punked in front of these people. You're not going to make me
Great way
look
to put it.
crazy, and
You're
so
not gonna
forth and so
embarrass
on. You're
me.
not going to embarrass me.
Yeah.
Then you have another dynamic, where, hey, I mean, you behind the scenes and you having conflict and everything is going on, and some people just don't have it in them to really be accepted in terms of conflict. It's just my way or the highway, type of a situation.
So how do you manage conflict? How do you manage conflict? What is in your mind a way as a man,
Mhm.
a way of managing conflict? when there's conflict in your relationship?
In the beginning, the truth of the matter is that I had a flight mentality. I'm gonna go from there to now because it's a vast difference, from my teenage years and 20s and so forth to me being 53 now. You know what I'm saying? But for a long time in relationships, that was what I did. We've talked about it before. I don't like conflict. I'm just not one of them type of people. I don't like, unless I just have to do it. I would rather not. When me and you used to get into it in the early stages, and
Mhm.
in the beginning stages.
We used to get into it.
Y'all, come on, man, keep it a buck. I mean, we didn't get here, just by osmosis. It took a
Grace
lot of
and
trial.
mercy.
It took a lot of error. It took grace. It took mercy. It took grace on each other, and
Grace and
it took
mercy.
listening, and it took communication, and it took
This is true.
growth. You had to grow in these stages to be able to get to this point where we are now. And our journey, let me preface that our journey is not going to be the exact same as everybody else's journey. So what works for us probably may not work for you guys, but we're just speaking just kind of on our, situation and how things happen with us. So getting back to what I was saying, originally it was a flight. I'm not getting ready to deal with this. I'm not getting ready to argue with you. That was my famous words to you all the time. I'm not getting ready to argue with you. I thought that, you know, a conflict and actually discussing and communicating in the conflict meant that we were arguing. And I'm not getting ready to do that because you're not getting ready to disrupt my peace like that. Even though it still disrupted my peace because nothing was ever solved. So when we finished and I walked off or whatever the case may have been, everything that I was dealing with, all of the stuff, having that imaginary argument, as Elder Kreiner used to say back home, that imaginary argument, that thing would be playing in my mind all day and all night until literally I went to sleep. And I'm thinking about what you saying to me, what I'm gonna say to you, and all of this stuff hadn't even been said. But you just go through that imaginary argument phase. And so in the beginning, it was flight. I just moved around. Now at 53, being older, going through some trial and error, lots of prayer, and understanding things quite differently. Now, my way of handling conflict, I definitely communicate. I try my best to communicate on a different level than, of course, what I once did in the past. Prayer has always been a part of um, me, so I incorporate that more. I mean, I done told the Lord on you a lot of times, Lord, hey, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Because even though we may have talked about it and we may have resolved, some of whatever it is that we were going through, if I felt like there may have been some other things that were still lingering, okay, Lord, I need you to give me the wisdom on how I need to, talk to her about this particular situation and these things, because you don't want to leave anything um, left on the table, for lack of a better term. We agree to disagree, and that's another thing that I've learned to incorporate that helps me in terms of conflict. Knowing that I can say what it is that I feel. You may agree, you may not agree. But even in that, okay, you may not agree, that's fine. Then you tell me your side and how you feel. Okay, and hey, we're going to agree to disagree because I feel strongly about this. And that's, just a few things, a few examples of how I think we were able to make it. Because the truth of the matter is, everything that happens doesn't warrant a response. That's another way of handling
I
conflict.
think that is a great point that you make, is everything doesn't warrant a
It
response.
doesn't.
I think that, in conflict with whoever you're having a disagreement with, I think that you have to be open and willing to understand that we are 2 different people. First and foremost, we are 2 different people. We come from 2 different backgrounds, we have 2 different sets of minds and thoughts and reasons, whatever, so have you. So just because we're in relationship doesn't mean that you have to think like I have to think.
Right.
So I think that's one thing for me. Two, I have learned that in order to be successful at relationship, it takes communication.
Definitely.
So that was another lesson learned because my history has it that I would just shut down because I wasn't feeling like I was being hurt. But that has a lot to do with, your environment, your safe space, and how you are encompassing conflict. So I learned that through therapy. I'm an advocate for good therapy. Everybody needs a good therapist. But I learned that you get nowhere by going silent and not expressing how you feel. You don't get anywhere. You don't get any growth, and it definitely doesn't help your relationship.
Right.
So getting beyond all of those things, I think that it is very important to talk.
Mhm.
And I think you have to set quote unquote rules when you are in conflict. I don't think we've ever said, okay, this is rule number one or this is rule number two. But I think we go into conflict with one another, one, respectfully,
Yes.
and two, my intent is never to hurt you.
Right.
Because I mean, it can get real when you're in a marriage, and it's never that my intent is never to hurt you, but I must be honest. Three would be honesty.
Yeah.
You know, it was a trigger when you did this, or I didn't like when you did that. And you might respond, what you talking about? And then I have to say, okay, look at how you just responded.
Mhm.
When I took that as you
That
being
happens.
smart alecky
It did
and
at times.
snapping back,
Right.
when really you were asking a better way to say it, babe, what you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about, but it's how you respond. So I think that I've also learned that we have to be mindful of how we respond in conflict. And I
Yes.
think that is going along with the topic of how you have or manage conflict and not ruin the relationship. You have to be clear about what your intent is in your relationship.
And
And so I come in conflict knowing
Mhm.
your intent is never to hurt me.
Right.
I hope that you always know that my intent is never to hurt you. So we're here because we don't agree. We
Right.
both feel strongly. And how do we either get to agree to disagree? Because that happens.
True.
There are just times we are not going to agree, and we're okay with that. But there's also times when we have to talk, take a break, come back and talk some more, take a break, and then say, okay, hey, 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
What's gonna work best for you? You have to be willing to negotiate. Because
And
there are times where you have to be willing to negotiate or you're gonna repeat the cycle.
right.
And every time you come back to that issue, it's going to be worse.
So the truth of the matter is, I mean, basically from what I'm hearing that you're saying, especially when it comes to response, it's 90% tone, 10% what you say. The way that you say a thing, the way that you put forth your response, that is going to be one of the main keys. And a lot of you already know this, but it bears repeating because
Right.
there are some people that when they enter into a conflict, the first thing that they want to do is they want to talk loud, they want to talk harsh, they want to be sharp because something on the inside, and I really feel like this is the truth because it's just something that I looked at in me. My response a lot of the time was I don't want to say a trauma response, but it was because of
It was a
how
trauma
some
response.
things had happened in
It
my
was
life.
always let's fight.
Yeah.
It was flight because I don't want to fight. That's more or less how it was. And
But if I had
that
to
was
fight, I'm coming out swinging.
and that was a trauma response.
Right.
Definitely a
And
trauma response.
so, you know, 90% tone, 10% what you say. And when you really just look at, conflict, it, you have to get to a point to where you can recognize innately what it is that you are dealing with that makes you respond the way that you do. Because I'm not saying that people don't do bad things that really might piss you off, because the truth
Right.
of the matter is sometimes that does happen. But there are times where it could be the smallest thing, hypothetically, you know, and we don't have that problem because we both have our own bathroom. But babe, you left the toilet seat up, and the toilet seat turns into a whole big, humongous ordeal, and you like, really, man? I mean, it's as simple as just putting the toilet seat down. You know what I'm saying? That solves everything. You just put it down. But you're not really thinking like that, and your logic is totally out the window because you just
Right.
mad, for whatever
Right.
reason. There's something innately that's going on inside of you that makes you fly off the handle on stuff like that, and you have to learn how to heal and deal with the things.
So, research shows conflict resolution is tied to long term health. Couples who approach disagreements with positive behaviors have less stress. Research has also shown that how couples work through disagreements on serious topics can often predict the success of their
I agree.
relationship.
I can agree with that
Wow.
100%. I can agree with that.
Wow. So, in long term relationships, and sometimes even in short term ones, partners can often find themselves stuck in a cycle of familiar arguments. We just talked about that. They discuss the issue, resolve it, and breathe a sigh of relief, only to have the conflict resurface with disappointing predictability weeks or months later. So, why
Wow.
is it that people talk about something? Why do you think that happens? Why do you think people talk about something, they discuss it, resolve it, move on, but then it happens again? Was somebody not honest
um
in
I,
how
I
they felt, or
I think it could be that somebody's not honest, but I also believe that there are some people that, even though they might have a conflict and they might actually talk about that conflict and they resolve that conflict, one partner actually may think that it's resolved, but there's another partner or the other partner, that other side is still holding a grudge.
mm,
A lot of the time people
that's
hold
good.
silent grudges
That's good.
and they don't even really think that they're doing it. You know what I'm saying? They're not even recognizing that they're holding silent grudges, because even though we may have talked about it and even though we may have said, okay, well, it's cool, we're good, everything is great, innately, they're still mad, they're still upset, disappointed, whatever it is. And because they're still dealing with that internally, they may have outwardly spoken that they let it go, but inwardly they hold on to that thing, man. Almost like what Pastor was talking about today. Think about what he was saying when he was talking about, and I just want y'all to catch this. This was something that our pastor said this morning that was really, really great in church. And he was talking about how the all of the demons came out of the man that had legion, the legion of demons. How he went and he wanted those pigs to be able to hold those demons. And even though he might have said, cast them into the herd of swine, for most people, he would think, oh, okay, well, the swine, they taking the demons and they jumping off the cliff and they dying. But the thing of it is that they're still accessible, because even though they may have jumped off the cliff, that
They
doesn't
weren't, he
mean
never got rid of them.
he never got rid of them. They just jumped off the cliff. It killed the pigs, but the demons were still accessible. And so a lot of the time, people will,
Hold on
okay,
to the hurt,
I'm
hold on
cool,
to the pain,
because what
hold
you're not
on
going
to
to
the
do
grudge.
next time we get into it,
It's all gonna come out.
I'm going to bring this back up again. I'm
Yep.
going to refresh your memory on how you heard me before. And I'm going to keep doing this. And it's going to be a repetitive cycle to a point to either one, that the relationship is going to dissolve because that person is not trying to keep, you know, being the butt of, you did this to me, you did this to me, you did this to me, but out of your mouth, you said everything was cool.
Right.
Or it's going to be a miserable long
And let me tell you
term
something,
relationship.
newsflash, that's not love, y'all. Holding those grudges, keeping count, writing it down in your diary, that's not love. When you agree to let it go, it's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I disagree with you, but I'm willing to let it go. For the sake of our marriage, I'm willing to let it go,
Yeah.
to move beyond this. And I have to genuinely let it go. That can't mean I'm going to out my mouth let it go, but I'm going to be mad at you in the interim.
So
You can't do that.
So Roxanne, she says just some of the comments, they shut down. Was
Oh,
one of
yeah.
them to end the
And
conversation.
you know what? Shutting down and
Because,
the silent treatment,
yeah, because they were not healed with
that
the
is
resolve.
emotional abuse.
Definitely.
That is emotional abuse. I just want to put that out there.
And I didn't, you know what? I never really knew that that would be deemed as abuse, the silent treatment, because I would go silent on anybody in a minute. Man, I ain't got nothing to say. I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut. I'm cool.
And what you do is you think, I didn't say nothing, so I didn't do nothing. If I don't say
Right,
nothing, then I don't do nothing.
right.
But when you commit to relationship, you commit to communicate. You commit to work through. You commit to resolve. And sometimes that resolve is, you think that way, I think this way, I love you, good night, we're done. It just has to be that way. But you have to, both parties have to know that they still are disagreeing, but we're going to move beyond it for now.
And at the end of the
That's the
night,
key.
if
That's the key.
if you do that, don't get over there and get in the bed and get on all on the other side or whatever and not snuggle up to me like you normally do. No, no, I'm serious. It's funny, but that's what happens. And that little
I used to
bit,
do that.
no, and I wasn't even going
I
there.
don't do it
I'm
anymore.
just saying that in general because that little bit of that small little space
It
can
matters.
plant a seed of division that
Yes.
can grow
Yes. It matters.
exponentially. And so
It
that's all
matters.
I was saying, y'all. You know what I'm
Look,
saying?
but
Like
you
for
know, I'm
real.
very transparent.
Yeah.
At one point, that was my flight.
Get over there.
That was my flight. I'm done. I You stay over there, I stay over here. Don't even think about sex because it ain't happening because we don't agree. So you ain't getting none. Hey, we grown here.
That's wild.
But that was my way of managing, but that comes from past trauma.
Right.
And I had to realize, I had to heal, get to the place where I could understand why my response was as such.
Denise says it has a comment. It happens because some people are good at gaslighting and manipulating that partner into taking all the blame solely to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
And Denise, again, when that happens, you think you keeping the peace for now, but it doesn't last. It's short lived because there was never any real true result.
And that's that's I believe just one of the like I said, the many facets of how conflict can affect your relationship. And I'm not even just talking about like relationship as far as like girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife. I mean your relational friendships,
Yeah.
and different things like that. Conflict happens in any type of ship. Let's just be honest. You know what I mean? And so how you deal with them, how you respond, how you allow yourself to react. Me, I'll be honest. One of the biggest things that I have an issue with when it comes to conflict is my face. My facial expression. I don't have a poker face. I just don't. I try, but that doesn't mean that it works. If there's something that's off, I'm probably gonna look crazy. My wife always has to tell me, especially if we out and I see
Fix your
something,
face.
fix your face. Because
Right.
hey, I'm looking like, what is you serious, bro?
And everybody know exactly what he's looking like that for.
I mean, but again, facial expressions, body language, mannerisms, all of that plays a part in how you respond. And so you might be smiling in my face and everything looks good, but you stand offish. You got your arms is crossed, and your body is like, yeah, whatever,
Wait till we get to the car.
right? You know what I'm saying? And so even in that, you just have to be, mindful, and you have to be careful, of being able to have that because, with the way that things are going and the way that things, are happening with people and couples today, and the way that people are just like checking out of here and doing stuff, to their partner, man, you just have to be really careful. And I'm not saying you
I think you
should,
have to be careful, but I think we also have to acknowledge you have to take the time to know your partner.
and that's where I was going. So you're right.
And so I think when we're having this discussion, we are assuming that this is someone that you've taken the time to know. This is someone that you've taken the time to trust. This is someone that you've taken the time and they have earned and they have your respect,
Right.
because that's not a place for everybody.
No.
You know, it's just not a place for everybody. So we are truly talking about when you've gotten yourself to a healthy relationship, or even how to get to a healthy relationship. You have to learn how to manage and work your way through conflict, because you are not going to always agree. This is with friends, this is with your kids, so forth and so on. And I can even talk about conflict, especially with the kids, because I had two very, for lack of better terms, raw parents. And so, as we all would agree, probably our kids are much are raised differently. I don't want to say they're much softer than we were,
They
but
are kind of
they are
though.
raised differently. We've raised them differently. So I can say something exactly the same way my mom or my daddy would have said it to me, to my kids, and everybody mad. We on FaceTime, three-way, whatever, everybody mad. And then I'll get a text from two of the three. Now, one is gonna give me the silent treatment until they get over it. But the other two, it's not what you said, it's how you said. And the other one will say, Mom, you could have said that a little different.
True.
So I think we have to realize who we're talking to also, especially when we're talking about various relationships and the type, of communication that surrounds that relationship. You have to be comfortable and confident and really know who you're talking to.
Right.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
Know your audience.
And on your way to understanding um, the person that you're wanting to be in a serious relationship with, and you said this, but I just kind of want to reiterate it and piggyback. You can save yourself a lot of headache with going into a relationship with someone when you actually look at how they handle conflict in the beginning. Because if the way that they handle conflict is, and you don't even have, it doesn't even have to be physically violent, but if they're verbally, violent, and they don't really know how to communicate and get themselves to a place to where they can honestly and openly and transparently say whatever it is that they're saying and that they need to say to you without wanting to just verbally thrash you or even physically put their hands on you. If they can't do that, let that thing go. What I think happens for a lot of women is that they see that potential. They see the potential
Potential
in a
is not
man.
where it's at. And I'm not saying room for growth. We're strictly talking about potential.
Right,
Potential meaning you are who you are in that moment and there is no movement towards growth.
right. But
Growth is I'm working on me. Taking the steps.
right.
I'm trying to do and be better. Two different things, ladies. Two different things.
Yeah, but I think what happens is they see the potential, and because they see the potential, they think that everything else is going to change. Oh, well, he's just really, really, really mad this time. And yeah, he might have called me out of my name this time, but I think he's going to get better
He
as we
said he
get
was
as
sorry. Yeah.
yeah, he said he was sorry as we learn each other more and we
And
grow.
again, we're not bashing people because
No,
people do
no.
make mistakes and they can
Right.
change when they want to, when they put the work
And
in.
that's where I was going.
But you gotta be
Yeah,
careful.
you
It's a
got to be
fine line
careful,
there.
and you have to keep your eyes open. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not bashing anybody. Please don't take it that way. I'm just saying that I believe, and it goes for men too, but
Potential
especially
gets a
for
lot of
women.
people in trouble.
That for a lot of women,
It gets a
that's
lot of
what I
people
see.
gets a lot of us in trouble.
Yeah, that's what I see.
It gets a lot of us in trouble. I would definitely agree
I see that.
there. It gets a lot of people in trouble. And I also think that again, you have to know your audience. But I also believe that honesty, I've learned in my experience that honesty goes a long way.
Yes.
When you come into a relationship open and honest, it does something to the bond. It does something to how you perceive me, how I
Right.
perceive you, how I see you, how I love you, how I respect you.
Right.
Honesty can take your relationship to a whole different height. And I think when you enter situations with honesty, especially conflict, you have the groundwork to be able to work through whatever the situation is.
True.
When there is no honesty in that conflict or that communication or that relationship, it's already kind of been built off a lie. So
Right.
then I'm not honest about how I feel.
Your
I'm
foundation
not
isn't solid.
honest about
Yeah.
how I'm going to respond because I can't you are getting the representative. And a
And
lot
that,
of
woo,
times
that's
the
that one.
representative
That's that one right
is who
there.
gets us in trouble when we're dealing with conflict.
Right. And I would say that in the very, very, very beginning, there's nothing wrong. Like your first date, I'm gonna give you the representative.
Oh, well,
You know,
yeah,
first
it
couple
takes
of
time.
days,
You
I'm gonna
gotta
give you
earn
the
it. You
yeah,
have
I'm
to
gonna give
earn
you the
it.
representative. You know what I'm saying? Because I really want to know what you about. So I'm gonna
Mhm.
just sit and I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna do all of the things and you gonna do all of the things or whatever. You know, but then as things start to progress, okay, little bits of the real me, little bits of the real you. You know what I'm saying? Let me see what I'm working with. Let me see what you're working with. Because if this thing is gonna go anywhere, I don't want the representative to be the person that I fall in love with. Because if I fall in love with the representative and then a conflict happens, the representative is not going to know how to deal
If
with the
you
conflict correctly.
can't be authentically who you are in your relationship with whomever, then that's your first red flag.
That's the
If I
truth.
have to switch or change the story for you for whatever reason, there's a red flag.
Keep it a buck. So we got a few comments and
Okay.
we'll get back to it. Denise Daniel says, I have heard men tell women that they want them to be their peace, which is why is that? Because my interpretation is different. I'm not sure if this is part of the subject for today. It can be though. It
Okay.
can be. And what I would say, just from a man's point of view, I remember I used to kind of say that same thing. You know, if you can be my peace, then we can rock. We
But I
good.
also think that comes from the misinterpretation of women all are nags. Come on,
That
ladies.
that could be
We're
that.
nags. All we do is nag and complain and talk about what we
That
do
could
and
be
don't
that.
do and yada, yada, yada. There is a percentage of men
Right.
that have placed that thought in their head, and that is where they go with everything.
That's the
All you
perception.
doing is nagging. All you
That
doing is talking. All you doing is complaining. All you're doing
yes.
that. When, from a woman's perspective, all I'm doing is either reminding you again, because I've already asked you one time, two, telling you something that you should already know. And three, if you did it for the first time, I wouldn't be back asking you again. So why is that now on your nerves?
Right. Because you didn't ask me too
Because
many times.
this is, in my experience, where that nag comes
Right.
from an immature individual who does not want to be asked, told, or repetitively reminded to do something. That is where I think that peace, that
Um,
statement from a lot of men, I just want you to be my peace. I don't want to argue. I don't want to complain, and I don't want to da 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 da. But what really is peace?
it's definitely become a
Because peace
societal
does not
saying.
mean that we don't have conflict.
Right. It's
Peace
become a
does not
societal
mean that
saying for
we are
sure.
not going to disagree. So, men out there in the comments, I'm sorry if that was a scream through the mic,
Yeah, you was
but
loud.
men out there in the
You was
comments,
loud.
I want y'all, because this, Denise, you hit a
She
nerve there.
passed it. Ah!
What does it mean for a woman to be your peace?
I ain't never said that, by the way. So yeah,
But I hear this
she on her
all the
own.
time from individuals that call me or ask me for advice for certain things. It's always, but he says I'm not his peace. She says I'm not her peace. How do I get to a level where I'm their peace?
But the truth of the
What
matter
does that
is,
mean? What does that look like?
there is no such thing,
You have to be your own peace.
which is where I was going.
Find peace within yourself. That's not, it's not my job to give Norse peace.
Your only peace is gonna come through you and the Lord, and that's just the truth of the matter.
I second that.
You could never, and it's no shot against you as my wife, but you could never be my peace.
Now
Now,
I
what
can
you can do,
give
you
you
can
peace. Yes,
enhance.
yes,
You
yes,
can
yes,
enhance the peace
yes.
that I already have. But as far as being my peace solely, it will never happen.
Mm.
It'll never happen. So that was a good one,
That
Denise.
was real good.
She,
And Denise, we gonna double back on that on
yeah.
another episode because that
Cameo
could be a whole
says
different show.
nobody can be one's peace other than Jesus, which he is correct. Roxana says most people do not walk into the relationship showing their true self, which is true.
That is very true.
That is true. That is true. That is true. Roxana says God needs to be your peace and not me, which is exactly what I had
We are
said.
expecting something from a person in flesh that we cannot give.
We put weights on people and expectations on people that honestly a lot they cannot. And a lot of that is because of broken issues, trauma, hurt, and everything else that they've experienced, believing that if they get with a person and a person shows them something different and it feels good to them and it feels better than what they had, then all of a sudden, all of these
Life is
expectations,
great. I'm
I'm I'm
happy.
I'm getting ready
No,
to put
fix
all of these
yourself.
things on you because now from what I can see, things are really good and I feel good about myself because of how you treat me without feeling good
For the
about
moment.
myself on my own.
For the moment.
So we put a lot of extra weight on people and we talk about, you already carrying certain amounts of baggage when you get with somebody anyway.
Mhm.
But now you've heaped a whole daggum, treasure chest on their back of all of these expectations that they are not going to be able to succeed at doing. They're not.
You got some more comments. First and foremost, it's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility to deal with your own trauma, to work on healing yourself. And I think that's one thing that's part of the problem. We want to be in relationship, but we don't want to get healed.
Right. Right.
So we come broken and unhealed in relationship when we need to go be worried about getting healed and being whole before we get into the relationship.
Or the flip side of that is that you think that you're going to get healed when you get in a relationship.
And you just taking the broken pieces to somebody else.
You treat me good. And because you treated me different than the last joker that I was with, I'm going to get better now.
Mm-mm.
No, you are
Mm-mm.
not going to get better. Sophie said it best, finding your own peace is priceless. And it's the
Absolutely.
truth. You have to
Priceless.
find your own peace. Nobody. They
Not
might
your
treat you
mama,
better.
not your daddy,
Right.
not your sister, your brother, your kids, your uncle. Nobody can bring you peace outside of yourself and the Lord. That's just it. That's just it. And so, oh yeah, that whole be my peace, be careful. And I would challenge individuals when if somebody says that to you, ask them to describe what peace looks like.
Right.
Have that discussion. Because again, oftentimes, speaking from a woman's perspective, a lot of times in immaturity, I would be like, "Oh, I know how to be your peace," thinking that your peace is I'm not gonna complain, I'm not gonna be nagging. But that's not true peace.
And for some
So
men, they
now in
don't even
maturity,
know what real peace is.
that's why you pose the question. Because we're now mature adults.
Yeah, some
Most
people
people
don't
on
even
this
really know
podcast
what
are
real peace
mature
is.
adults.
They feel like peace for
Challenge
some
that
men.
person with the question.
Yeah.
So what does your peace look like? Then I can tell you if I can support that.
Yeah. But for some men, they peace because they don't understand what real peace is. Honestly believes, okay, you're not telling me to take out the trash 3 times or 4 times. You're not nagging me about getting these clothes. You're not nagging me about,
If
you
they
know what I'm
like me,
saying?
Alexa tell you, don't forget to
Oh,
take out the
Lord,
trash.
yeah, that's so ridiculous. Anyway, hold on. Cameo says we can easily make gods out of people and not even know it. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
Roxana, she says, that may be too heavy for others to carry. We are trying to maintain our own mental health. And
Yes.
that is the honest to God truth.
And just bringing it back in and back around full circle, Roxana said a whole lot. Mental health. How you respond to conflict has a lot to do with where your mental health lies,
Right.
where your mental health stands. How do you process things? How do you even see conflict? Because in all actuality, the statistics say that conflict is healthy. It's learning how to manage
Right.
conflict that becomes the problem. Having conflict is healthy
Right.
because no two people are the same. It's learning how to manage that conflict that becomes the problem. So, pose a question to you guys. How do you manage conflict? If you're in a relationship with someone, how do you manage conflict?
While you guys are thinking about that, let me go to Cameo's comment because it was a very good comment. There is a huge difference between being better and being whole.
Yes.
And that's something to think about.
Yes.
You can always be better, but being whole, being healed, that takes a whole it's a whole different step.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of internal work in looking at you
Mhm.
and taking inventory. And a lot of the reason why people struggle in the areas of conflict is because if they have somebody that can honestly point out to them the truth about themselves, that makes them very, very, very upset because they've never really looked at themselves, or they've looked at themselves. They know that it's true, but they just don't want to work on it. It's going to take too much for me to get better.
Mhm.
I'm going to have to work too hard to not be like this. So we mask it with, this is just who I am.
And that don't make it right.
This is who I am. This is just who I am. This is just what I do. This is just how I handle things. This is just the way that I am.
And that doesn't make it right. Being who you are, it's okay to be who you are, but it doesn't mean that sometimes we have opportunity for growth and development.
Stop giving yourself a pass to be toxic. I said it.
This is true.
Stop giving yourself a pass to be toxic.
And you know what? One of the key things that they say to do when you're in conflict, a way to manage it better, one that stood out to me is listen to understand, not to reload. So while the other person is talking, I don't need to be sitting there thinking, oh, okay, that's why I'm
As
getting
soon
ready
as
to
you,
clap
yeah, as
back.
soon as you
Soon as you get
finish.
done, I'm getting ready. I got to clap back for you. Validate before you disagree. Validate how someone's feeling before you go in on, but I don't agree with you because da 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 da. No, maybe I can understand why you feel that way.
Right,
I mean, I can see how one would feel that way, but I would disagree. That was not my intent. That goes back to that intent thing
right.
and knowing your audience, knowing who you're talking to, knowing why or how you got where you're at.
That's true.
Oh, this is another one. Another word of advice is stick to one issue. No bringing up old fights or you always do this, you never do that, and keeping score.
I'll be back, y'all. I gotta step away real quick.
Keeping score. One conflict, one resolution, and that's it, guys. You cannot continue to bring up old stuff. Again, when we discuss something and we're having issues, we have to be willing to address those issues in that moment and at that time. One issue at a time. We can't continue to go back and rehearse and go over things that we've already discussed or that we've already addressed. That's just not healthy. That's just not healthy.
It's not. Not at all. But we got some more comments. Let's see. Lorenzo, Lorenzo Atkinson, he just says, this is a good information, you two. Thank you. We appreciate that. Denise Daniels says, accept accountability.
Accountability is key because accountability says, I'm not always right. I'm sometimes wrong and I sometimes need work.
That's true.
But along with accountability, in order to resolve conflicts, you have to be willing to admit that you need work. You have to be willing to admit that you were wrong. You have to be willing to admit there are areas for growth. Accountability is everything, and I think that's one of the major issues that people deal with, Denise, when they're dealing with conflict. Nobody wants to be accountable.
Right. So Cameo says in his comment, ask what did they mean by what they said, because what they said and what I heard is two different
You
things.
are absolutely
And
right. And
that's
if
the
they
truth.
screaming and pointing at you and going all in, you probably ain't hearing nothing. You looking at the gestures as if to say, "We about to get down."
Right.
But again, you gotta be careful.
Roxana says managing conflict looks different depending on the situation, but I still be loading my clap back while Pastor is expressing his point.
Come on, somebody.
Come on, Roxana. Uh, Denise Daniels, she says that takes maturity,
It
and,
does.
and it's true. And the thing that I think that we want to do is we just want to make sure that we reiterate, and we'll probably have to come back to this one because we run a long time.
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure, and I think we'll come
Conflict is
back.
healthy.
Conflict is
If you
healthy.
get nothing from this podcast tonight, I want you to know that conflict is healthy.
Yes.
Agreeing to disagree is healthy.
Right.
And sometimes it's best to agree to disagree. Sometimes taking a break and say, okay, time out. We're not getting anywhere. I'm holding firm where I'm at, you holding firm.
Yeah.
We have to stop.
And
There's nothing wrong with that either.
no, nothing wrong with it. Being able to agree to disagree, and doing that in a healthy way.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that everything has to stop and you got to walk around, the house or your job or whatever, not talking and not communicating, and you stay over here on this side of the house, I stay on it. It don't even have to be that way.
Always be open to
Be open.
respect, to love, and to listen.
Absolutely. I would
And
totally
know
agree with
that
that.
we're ever growing. Nobody's always right. And nobody really has to be wrong. We just see it through a different set of lenses.
Our son said, mm-hmm. And that's the truth of the matter. Well, y'all, we appreciate y'all coming on. Let us know if y'all want us to do a part two to this. We, I was just,
Great conversation. And
yeah,
thank you to all of our newbies coming in tonight and really communicating with us, because this is not just for us. We grow through these and we hope
Hold on.